Frog switch manufacturing's production is set up in two areas. One is a no-bake system, where we can produce up to 40,000 pound primary mantles. It's for large castings or odd shapes or low volume products. Or we have the vacuum molding system. We have 3 different lines which can produce the high volume products. On no bake, we could take a particular pattern on a 9x9 flask, produce that one pattern 4, maybe 5 times a week. When mounted on V process, we can produce that up to 8 or 9 pieces on an 8-hour shift. Started on the V process in the early 70s. Our 3 vacuum molding lines are broken down. The V1 line is a 54x96 flask. It is a T-shaped area. Our V1 line will house small cones, some jaws. We make our shredder hammers there. V2 is a 72-inch square flask. It is set up in a 360-degree operation where it can rotate from stage to stage. And V3 is the world's largest 106 by 126 flask. The vacuum molding process was installed at Frog Switch not only to enhance the capacity of our castings, but also as a non-pollutant system. And we are now one of the few non-polluting foundries in the world between our vacuum molding and our no-bake system. The whole vacuum system, the way we have it, is unique to Frog Switch. We have the most success, and we are the only ones using it for manganese steel crusher parts. As our production demands vary, we can move our workers from one molding line to another to increase the number of castings per shift off that particular line so we can keep our lead times competitive. Our 3 vacuum molding lines are broken down. The V1 line is a T-shaped 54x96 flask. Our V1 line will house small cones, some jaws. We make our shredder hammers there. V2 is a 72-inch square flask. It is set up in a 360-degree operation where it can rotate from stage to stage. It's a 6-foot square flask. We can produce up to 5.5-foot products in this flask size. And on V3, which is the world's largest vacuum molding line, we can produce up to 7-foot castings. But the vacuum molding process starts with a pattern. That pattern is mounted on a board which is placed on a carrier. We will heat plastic which will be pulled over the pattern. Mold wash is applied. There will be a vacuum placed on the carrier which will draw the plastic to the pattern. The flask, either the cope or drag, will be set into place. It's filled with a loose sand. Another piece of plastic will be placed over the top of that sand, and then the vacuum will be drawn between the 2 pieces of plastic through the sand, and the vacuum will be released under the carrier. At that time, the cope or drag can be lifted from the pattern. And once both pieces are made, it can be poured. Frog Switch is unique that we were one of the few 100% manganese steel foundries. We do not produce other materials. We're focused on what we do best. Frog Switch is a complete foundry. We have a pattern shop as well as a machine shop, so we can do everything on site, which helps us with our goal of a higher percentage of on-time deliveries for our customers. Once castings are produced on either our no-bake or V process, they are passed through heat treatment. Then castings are taken to our cleaning department for riser removal before they are taken to the machine shop. In the machine shop, castings, bowls, mantles, jaws are all machined on particular fit side surfaces. We meet the customer specification on machining, or we have our own internal quality machine standards that we meet on the fit sides of castings, and also we true up the wear side on bowls and mantles so the parallel crushing chamber is in line at all times and once the castings are placed in the crusher. In the crushing chamber of a cone crusher, if the bowl liner and mantle, the bottom of the crushing parallel zone is not at the proper point, you will create an imbalance in your wear, which will decrease the liner life and throughput of the crusher, which would affect their cost per ton of the castings. The machining on the wear surfaces is to a specific tolerance, but these points at the bottom of the wear chamber will match up when installed in the crusher, so the customer knows that these castings will give him the throughput and tonnages that he expects from his cone crusher. One of the strengths at Frog Switch is the dealer network, which is reinforced by our direct salespeople. Our sales distribution is done by direct sales in mining and some in aggregate. Most of our sales are done through dealers, distributors in all three industries, as well as OEM or original equipment manufacturers. We have an excellent dealer network that understands crushing from all facets, and they bring a value added to the customer through Frog Switch wear parts.
Foundries have different metallurgical compositions that they use in order to maximize the wear life and also reduce the cost per ton. When you're using a higher manganese content or a improved grain structure alloy, what you're able to do is maximize your utilization. If you can take your crusher and get a full year of full operating season instead of 9 months, you're able to change it during a scheduled downtime and not impede your crushing progress. And that 1 day's worth of crushing that you're missing by not changing it during the year, you'll never make up otherwise. The different alloys also improve the ability for the chamber to maintain its profile throughout. So oftentimes what you're going to have is as a crusher wears, the profile changes because now the feed is hitting a different spot into the crusher. You'll find that with different alloys and different shaped castings, you're going to find that you're able to have much more control and much more consistency of the product. It's interesting, these high-speed cones that we were talking about out there, each tooth on a high-speed cone that you just looked at is 7 thousandths of an inch of vertical travel every time you move one tooth. And it doesn't sound like much, but if you move that crusher a couple of teeth, you'll be able to go to where it's pulling full load amps, and you'll be able to maximize your attrition, maximize your reduction, and obviously maximize your yield of desired products.
Frog Switch dealer network is very important to the success at Frog Switch with our customers through their constant contact with customers in the field. They bring us the intelligence of what is required, what is needed, and keep us updated on some of the government requirements for product specifications, or we can work with them to tweak liner design. Frog Switch Manufacturing was founded in 1881 by John Hayes. At that time we built rail cars and fabricated frogs and switches for the railroad industry. The frog is the part that actually held the rail to the switch. By 1913 we built a foundry which was to produce frogs and switches and manganese steel castings. As the railroad industry started to decline in the late 50s, early 60s, the highway system started to grow in the U.S. Our focus changed to become a producer of manganese steel wear crushing parts. The industries that we currently serve today are the aggregate industry, the recycling industry, and the mining industry. By the late 50s, early 60s, as the highway system began to grow, there was a demand to produce more aggregate, more rock for the production of the highway system. We found that we had a niche to produce castings for the crushing industry, for the rock crushers that were producing the aggregate for the highway industry. In the aggregate industry, they'll use jaw crushers where we'll supply the jaw plates, the cheek plates, and miscellaneous parts, wedges, whatever's required to do the crushing. The rock crushers are to take large rocks and produce them into small rocks to a particular size and or shape.
The cubicity of the stone is one of the more recent requirements for the aggregate industry, and that's where the different fine-tuning of the crushing chambers comes into play. In order to get from here down to the 1As or 1Bs, the finer materials, it's got to go through several more stages of crushing. As you notice in the coarser stuff, the particle shape is not a concern, but the particle shape is very much a concern down below, and that's some of the things with the high-speed cone they're able to produce, be able to maximize the particle shape. You can see the cubicity, and that's how they rate this stone, is how cubical the aggregate actually is.
Mining as well as aggregate, we make crusher parts. In the mines, they call for the large primary crushers, which would hold primary mantle castings up to 40,000 pounds. We service through the iron ore companies in Minnesota and Michigan, as well as copper in the Southwest, and also some gold mines in Nevada and in Utah as well. The mining industry has been very important in frog switch history, and we continue to look forward to how we can better serve through field service, new products. In the recycling industry, we produce the hammers and grates that fit in the shredders that will shred an automobile or your refrigerator or your washer and dryer to shred those materials, and they're divided out and then that material is recycled.
The shredder in this yard, it's using 16 hammers, which weigh about 400 pounds apiece. The hammers in this shredder are made out of manganese steel. Manganese steel is the toughest steel known to man. While it work hardens, it retains a ductile core, so it's very good for high impact application where it's hard on the outside but still ductile on the inside. In a typical year, approximately 50,000 cars will be recycled at this facility. The automobile is the most recycled product in the United States and probably in the world. Before the shredding industry began, these cars were sent into a landfill, and now they are reprocessed and recycled and reused.
The product engineering department offers support to both manufacturing in the form of pattern construction drawings, as you see here, through the machining and final inspection process. And then we also offer support to the sales department and their customers in the form of working on customer inquiries to doing wear profiles. One of the services we offer is wear analysis, or analysis of the customer's crushing chambers. After the liners are removed from the crusher, the worn section of the liner is measured and overlaid with the profile of the new part. And as you can see here, we have the profile of the new liner superimposed with the profile of the worn liner. In this case is the bowl liner. And we do the same thing with the mantle liner. We start out with the new profile and superimpose the image of the worn liner. Several things we look for are that the liners are worn evenly, that they're smooth, without a lot of depressions. And the other thing we look for is use of the liner, whether there's still material that can be worn away after the liners are removed. So after we have the individual profiles, we set the liners in the crushing chamber as they would be in the operating position in the crusher, and again superimpose the worn liners over top of them. In this case, you can see the size of the feed material going into the crusher and the closed side discharge setting. So this gives a general idea of what the worn liners look like in the chamber compared to the new profiles. Then the next step would be to look at just the worn liners in that crushing profile. As the liners are worn, they are set at the closed side discharge setting of the crusher. And in this case, the liners are not worn too bad in this area as far as being worn evenly. But up in this area, the bowl liner is worn very thin, which at some parts of the liner probably will be worn through the liner. And also the feed opening is closed off such that you cannot get product through the crusher. So this would reduce the throughput of the crusher and also wear through the liner in this area. So in this particular instance, we offered this same chamber. We used the same mantle pattern, but we offered a different bowl liner, which gave a increased feed opening when the liners were new. Should be able to utilize a little more of the liner, get longer life from the liners, and maintain an increased throughput through the crusher for the life of the liners.
The Frog Switch advantage begins in the field. Our customers are supported by either a dealer or our direct sales network, as well as our engineering staff, all working together to lower the customer's cost per ton by supplying the customer a competitive, on-time product that can be counted on for consistent fit and performance. If one of our customers requests a particular part at a certain date, he can be assured that we're going to meet that date, because we're one of the highest rated on-time delivery foundries in the industry for manganese steel castings. With offshore competition, one of our goals is to keep our lead time as low as possible. In certain areas we can become busier than in other areas. That's when we are able to maneuver our workers from one molding line station to another molding line station, so we can keep our lead times as even as possible across all of our molding lines. In some cases, our delivery times can be 3 to 4 weeks if needed. Offshore competition cannot react as well as Frog Switch. Their product's either being produced and has a 4-week lead time, or it's on the boat and cannot be expedited. After many years of working with several different quality systems, Frog Switch has recently established our own, which is much tighter than industry standards. Quality begins with scheduling, molding, through pouring, heat treatment, finishing, machining, which leads to an on-time casting shipment to the customer. Frog Switch continues to look at manganese steel and what we can do to enhance the liner life of castings through our metallurgical department. We talked about working with customers to modify chamber designs through wear profiling, sieve analysis. This allows us to tweak the design to enhance performance of the crusher and liner life. Our product line includes manganese steel metal specifications of 14%, 18%, and 24% manganese steel. All three of these can be made in our new patented Werewolf, designed for specific applications where it will work harden easier or faster, which will extend the liner life. The werewolf material was designed at Frog Switch by our metallurgical engineers as a manganese steel to enhance liner life in specific applications. The metallurgical department will do R&D, research and development, by looking at different metal specifications, looking at applications, and working to come up with a different specification that we feel will work in certain applications, along with an engineering department that will do design work with customers on specific applications, looking at wear profiling, sieve analysis of the crusher, what comes in, what comes out, to analyze the chamber to enhance liner life or increase particular product size, along with working with metallurgical specifications to enhance liner life. Frog Switch has worked hard at developing teamwork throughout the plant, which includes the foundry and finishing, through bringing in all of the office personnel as well. And together we've been able to bring together a better atmosphere, which leads to better customer service right through the end product of the casting itself. On-time delivery, quality control, engineering support, dealers supported by direct sales personnel from Frog Switch, diversity in metallurgical specifications, technical excellence, on-time delivery, reliability, and casting consistency. Frog Switch will do our best to focus on you and what we can do to lower your cost per ton.